Previously on King of the Hill.
The system's broke, Hank. The election baby has peed in the bathwater.
So you're voting for the other fella?
I don't know.
So this past week, there's been a bunch of discourse on Twitter about fictional characters that would vote for Trump. Huge shout out to this person who tweeted the same copy-pasted response on like a dozen tweets about it. This is super normal and
very cool.
So anyways, like 15,000 people liked the tweet suggesting Hank Hill would be a Trumper.
That makes a lot of sense. A lot of nonsense.
I think the idea that Hank would support someone like Donald Trump completely misses the nuances of the character. But let's really dive into it, because I actually think this is kind of a pretty great jumping off point for a little character study on Hank Hill, and I've been looking for an excuse to talk about King of the Hills for years. King of the Hills? King of the Hills. King of the Hill for years, so let's jump into it. Yes, Hank, definitely a conservative, but the show has also gone out of its way to show that Hank has great respect for many Democrats as well. His dog is named Ladybird after President Lyndon B. Johnson's wife. He expressed great admiration for former Governor Ann Richards, who guest starred in an episode. This was Hank's reaction to meeting President Jimmy Carter.
You must be Hank.
You ran our country. America.
Hank does reminisce fondly about voting for Reagan.
I miss voting for that man.
And he does have a clear distaste for people like Bill Clinton. But he shows respect for members of both parties. And I think what this comes down to is one of the most interesting aspects of Hank Hill as a character. The most important thing to Hank Hill is integrity. Hank respects Ann Richards and Jimmy Carter because they have integrity in his eyes. For the 2000 election, we saw that Hank was a strong supporter of George W. Bush, partly because he agreed with his politics, and partly because Hank strongly believes in folks from his home state of Texas. Even with his full support behind W, Hank found one major issue with the candidate.
Oh my God. His handshake. It's limp.
Hank had a full-on crisis over voting for a man with a limp handshake. This seemingly very small thing to Hank was telling of Bush's character. Strength of character is more important to Hank than policy, and regardless of policy agreement, Hank would not vote for someone whose character he calls into question. When it comes to integrity, there are certain things that Hank holds dear. For one, Hank would not be running to vote for a billionaire Yankee. This was Hank's reaction to learning he was actually born in New York after thinking he'd been born in Texas for his entire life.
Place of birth. New York, New York.
Hank is not fond of these types of city folk, and ultimately it comes down to his own assumptions about their integrity. Now, I could talk for days about the president's lack of integrity, but I think there's only a couple things we need to talk about in relation to Hank Hill.
Trump steaks are the best you can give. And believe me, I understand steaks. It's my favorite food.
Hank Hill is serious about grilling meat. Steaks are important to Hank, and there's one major steak-related red flag that sets off Hank's lack of integrity meter.
What if somebody wants theirs well done?
We ask them politely yet firmly to leave.
It is well documented that Trump likes his steaks well done.
It's my favorite food.
I'm tempted to say that this alone would be a deal breaker for Hank Hill, but the other details in Trump's failed steak business venture would easily trigger Hank also.
With great meat, son, comes great responsibility.
In one episode, Hank stops supporting the Megalomart because their meat selection is, well, not very good. He ultimately ends up shopping at and even helping run a co-op, a place filled with people that he has very little in common with. People that live a way of life that he doesn't really understand. But they got their meat from a small farm that treats their animals well. They farm with integrity.
Integrity Farms.
This entire episode revolves around not letting big corporations ruin the integrity of the meat. And then there's the whole issue of where Trump steaks were sold.
And the Sharper Image is the only store where you can buy them.
Oh yeah, Hank Hill would definitely support the guy who sold overpriced shoebox steaks at a gimmicky electronics store. Very Hank Hill. But there's one thing that Hank believes in above all else.
I sell propane.
That's right, propane.
And propane accessories.
And propane accessories. And there's one thing that Hank despises above all else.
You brought charcoal into our house.
One of the many things Trump has fought for is the coal industry. The dude is very pro-coal.
My administration is putting an end to the war on coal.
He fucking loves coal.
It's my favorite food.
Coal doesn't exactly burn clean like Propane does. Unless you ask Trump.
Gonna have clean coal. Really clean coal.
Honestly, I'm kind of baffled that this is even a question. Is Hank conservative? Yes, that's the whole conceit of the show. The entire formula of King of the Hill is that Hank is an incredibly uptight, conservative, old school, all-American kind of guy. That guy is then confronted by a changing world that scares him, and the humor stems largely from his discomfort of being faced with those situations. But usually, Hank ends up actually learning something new from these scary new situations and confrontations. Does it change his opinion entirely? No, typically not, but he learns to empathize and understand things that he didn't before. Often because he finds some sort of underlying integrity behind the way of life that he didn't understand. That's what the show is. Hank is often willing to admit that even though an idea confused or scared him, he can at least accept and understand why other people might feel that way.
It's the best steak I have ever eaten.
Now, I'm not gonna pretend Hank would have voted for Hillary Clinton, but there's no way in hell he would have voted for Donald Trump. And if you want me to just cement the issue here, here's a couple tweets from a guy named Randy Rice. Randy tweeted, "My wife asked Mike Judge himself at a King of the Hill Q&A if Hank would have been a Trump supporter. He said, and I quote, 'There's no f***ing way he would have supported Trump.' Technically, yeah, this is hearsay, but there's enough evidence to support that he's not lying here. In 2019, Randy tweeted something with the same sentiment about a King of the Hill Q&A, and in 2017, he tweeted that he was at the King of the Hill 20th anniversary show at San Francisco Sketchfest. A quick Google search confirms that the same date he tweeted this, there was indeed a King of the Hill 20th anniversary table read where Mike Judge and much of the cast were present. Sounds pretty credible to me. All right, look, I know the comment section for this video is going to be an absolute nightmare, so I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I don't think I'm gonna respond. Unless it's just strictly King of the Hill based. I'm super down to talk about King of the Hill because I love King of the Hill. But if this is gonna just turn into a political free-for-all in the comment section, I'm out. I'm not gonna be there. I'm glad I had an excuse to talk about King of the Hill.
It's my favorite food.
It really blows my mind that people think Hank would have been a Trump guy. It's kind of offensive. This notion that Hank would pimp out his integrity to vote for a guy who vaguely supports his political leanings?
From now on, the only woman I'm pimping is Sweet Lady Propane. And I'm tricking her out all over this town.
If you like this video, do me a favor, stick around. I do lots of cartoon breakdowns, and honestly, if you want more King of the Hill content, let me know. I love this show.
Johnny!
Two cellos.